Hey, good evening, everybody. I kind of figured that epic donations and contributions deserve some epic credits. So, little opening sequence that we'll probably do on the weekends, like on Friday and Saturday. And I've tried to go through the list, and hopefully I got everybody. Also, I got Eclipse glasses here, and I tried giving those a test. Pointed the camera there at the sun, and looks something like this. So you should probably be careful with those Eclipse glasses, even if they say they're certified, because there are some shady ones floating around, and there's a lot of invisible spectra like ultraviolet and infrared that are harmful to the eyes, and you want to make sure you have glasses that will filter all that out. If you have a number 14 welder goggles, that will work also. In any case, there's a bunch of information on the internet about that. But, yeah, one last thing about the credits. Hopefully I didn't forget anybody. That counts all the monetary donors that are current. And send me an email. Please email tim.vasquez.weathergraphics.com if you need to sort that out, if I've missed you there. Okay, let's check out the weather, what we got going on outside at this time. It's fairly clear. We've got just a little bit of cirrus off in the distance, and what cumulus we have is pretty much dissipating there. The charts are looking like this. So once again, for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks in a row, northerly flow. We've seen very little of that southerly flow coming up from the Gulf. And if you go back to August when we did the weathercast back then of last year, we didn't have any of this northerly flow going on. We've got abnormally high production of polar air up in Canada, and that's pushing boundaries southward, and they tend to stall out, and you see one of them right here around Shreveport, Longview out to Fort Worth. A few storms along that. And then up in the higher terrain, upslope flow. If we have this flow coming from the east, that's a good setup for that. So plenty of thunderstorm activity there from Tucumcari all the way down to Las Cruces and up to Albuquerque. Out in the southeast, this is also a boundary graveyard. So we have a lot of convection all through this area here. Also, a lot of storms down in southern Florida too. The flow is a little bit more southerly than we normally see this time of year, and you can see very little effect of the Bermuda High. Just a little bit of a southerly gradient here on the east coast, and nothing really in the Gulf. The big picture from SPC showing the main problem, the upslope flow there in New Mexico from about Amarillo out to Las Vegas, New Mexico. And you can see the effect of all the old boundaries from the Appalachians down to the southern U.S. Plenty of thunderstorms there. Upper level pattern is looking like this. It looks like a little bit of a Rex block. And that's where we have an omega block, like you see right here, shaped like the letter omega, which is basically ridging up into western Canada and then down to the south, troughing pretty much right at the same position. So this forms a blocking pattern and keeps things kind of locked up. So we're not going to really displace this until we have a very good trough approaching from the west, and maybe we do have one right here out in the Aleutian Islands. Very large, possibly a long wave trough right there. Anyway, the ridging right there, that's pretty stubborn. Been holding on to there in British Columbia and helping keep the wildfires going. And let's see what those look like on the polar orbiter. We'll go up to, yeah, as soon as you get to Wyoming, you start seeing the smoke here. Smoke all through Yellowstone. Looks like the north and south limits, maybe Twin Falls, Idaho on the south, and Billings to Bozeman on the north. And then we get up to Washington State, lots of smoke there, and of course the bulk of the smoke in the central valleys of British Columbia, and that's big news there. Very, very heavy smoke. Looks like just west of Prince George and maybe a little bit northwest of there. And yeah, that's some very serious smoke there. Down to the south, though, Seattle, just a little bit of smoke, and then we hit the southern limits, probably around maybe south of Pendleton, and then a few fires, it looks like, all the way down to California. And then after that, things are looking pretty clear as we get into the San Joaquin Valley. Storms going on right there around Las Vegas and along the Mogollon Rim. And you can see the big capital for showers and thunderstorms is New Mexico. They've got the combination of the upslope flow and the seasonal monsoon pattern helping to feed moisture into this region. Plenty of moisture making its way into that area. Let me see if I can take a look at dew points here and see what's going on. Going to grab the latest data. All right, now we are processing the data. And here it comes. So we've got 60s dew points there in New Mexico, which is very high for that area, especially right here around Grants, New Mexico. So no wonder we have thunderstorm activity in that area. Elsewhere around the North American continent, this is where we have all the storms going on in British Columbia, or all the smoke and wildfires. 80 degrees there in the valleys, a few 90s. And we're seeing 84 all the way up to the Yukon. And this is, I think that's Watson Lake. That's where they have that big street sign field. I don't know if any of you have looked at Yukon tourism imagery, but they've got like this big forest of nothing but street signs, and it's very cool. And 88 degrees all the way up into the Northwest Territories. So quite a heat wave going on. And then, of course, in the Northeast, things are a lot cooler. They have just not really had much of a summer. Temperatures right now in the mid-60s in upstate New York and 70s throughout Virginia up to Ohio. Do we have another front coming south? Well, doesn't look like it, and that's partly due to the pattern shift, due to the pressure falls up in western Canada. Let me see if I can put up the pressure. So, yeah, a little bit of high pressure covering the northern plains, but we've got the pressure fall starting to take effect in western Canada, and that's not really a good pattern for generating more cold fronts coming down. But the latest one is all the way down to Oklahoma. And let's see if we can find the leading edge. Maybe I'll put up the streamlines. And we can see a little bit, yeah, looks like it's come through Dallas, Fort Worth here. And maybe through Lubbock. And maybe it's also come through the areas just south of Shreveport, south of Tyler right there. That looks to be the leading edge of the front. So there's the push of cold air, but already we're starting to see pressure falls up in the northern plains. There it is right there. Okay, what else is going on? We'll check out radar. I was going to do a radar special, but I completely ran out of time on that, so I had to back off from that. I'll just have to work that in where I can. JR level 2 showing just some weak thunderstorms all the way from Shreveport to south of Dallas, and this is along that front. And we can see the front right there close to the radar site. Is that a front? Well, let's check out the velocity. See if we can find a difference in the wind field. Well, green is inbound. So we have a very strong inbound component to the radar. Not so strong here. So I think that is definitely a frontal passage coming right through there. And then we see red here, and this is the tops of the storms there. The middle and tops of the storms. There's a component of motion away from the radar since it's red. So they're probably moving something like that. Or they could be moving like that. But it's definitely not toward the radar. So yeah, we've got a southeast motion on these cells coming into Athens and Tyler. Okay, we'll move things right along here. Take a look at the upper level pattern, 250 millibar chart, or 200. This is up at about just under 40,000 feet. Strong jet stream over Indiana and Illinois. This is basically a strong polar front jet. Across the northern part of the U.S., a bit of subtropical jet energy mixed in. And the center of the subtropical high pretty much over the Big Bend of Texas. And that's where we're going to find the warmer weather. Then the 850 millibar flow looking like this. A little bit of a low-level jet. 20 knots there at Del Rio and Midland. So maybe I'll paint that in there. Weak low-level jet, and then north of that we see the 850 millibar front coming south through Springfield, St. Louis, and Amarillo, Texas. Okay, nothing on the theta analysis. We can definitely look at the visible imagery. So there's the front, showing up very well on the visible imagery. The infrared showing the storm tops there in Texas, but also the remains of Franklin moving westward, triggering a few thunderstorm activities in the mountains there. And then we've got the southern system. I'm not sure what that is. I don't think that's Franklin. I kind of would have expected it to kind of be in this area, but I don't know. All right, so otherwise the Gulf is pretty clear. Any other systems, we'll just have to look at NHC for that. And there it is, 40% chance of formation north of Puerto Rico. So this is going to be a concern for the Carolinas up to the Long Island area. Five-day formation area looking like this here. So yeah, right off Cape Hatteras. And we'll be looking for that off Cape Cod and Long Island in about maybe a week from now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and look at these soundings. We've got kind of a clear day, and you saw that on the live shot right there. Pretty clear skies. Here's what the sounding is looking like. So why don't we take a look at the 24-hour change and compare that to yesterday? Well, I've got that all prepared here. There's the 24-hour change. The yesterday evening sounding is in red. So not much change in the temperature profile. Maybe a slight bit of warming at about 7,000 to 8,000 feet. So that'll be more conducive to capping. We see the moisture has deepened just a little bit. Now topping out at about 6,000 feet. Actually, it's shallower. I'm sorry, I got kind of messed up there. So yeah, a little bit shallower moisture. But a little bit richer there at about 5,000 feet. And we've seen that things have dried out in the mid-levels, and above that. Really depends on what level you're at. And then as far as the wind profile, the main change we've seen is a little bit of weakening. Flow dying down to about 15 to 20 knots compared with 25 to 35 yesterday. All right, so I'm going to head right into the forecast. Maybe I'll take a look at the eclipse weather right after that. The problem is I have to get some shopping done. I've got some urgent items, and the store here closes a little bit early. So let's check out the mesoscale forecast here. For tonight, there's the storms around Tyler. Those are going to die down. Maybe a few showers hanging on to about 10 o'clock. And then we've got a bit of an MCS coming together in the Texas Panhandles once again. And then I'll have kind of a east-southeast movement into Oklahoma. And that'll be arriving in the Oklahoma City area probably just after dawn there. So that's going to be slowly falling apart there, and we'll go to the NAM to see the rest of the story. There's the current chart. NAM not picking up too well on that convection near Tyler. But in any case, it has that dying out. Also, here comes the MCS across the Texas Panhandle. And that'll be mostly falling apart by tomorrow evening, and a little bit of regeneration around the Wichita Falls area, closer to the moisture field when we do the webcast tomorrow night. So we'll be looking for storms in that area, probably along the stationary front in that region. So we'll probably have something interesting to look at there on the radar. Looks like a little bit of regeneration also after dark there. Things really coming together along the Red River near Tulsa, so probably upper air energy helping to support those storms and pull in the inflow. So overnight activity all the way to Arkansas. And then for Sunday evening, things will be pretty quiet. I don't see any activity here, really. Here comes that tropical storm, tropical depression off the Florida coast that'll be heading north. And the NAM basically carries that north. A little bit of development off the North Carolina coast. And that'll enter the forecast there probably around Monday or Tuesday along the East Coast. Okay, let's see what we got in chat here. We've got Ryan saying good evening from rainy South Florida, 2 inches there. Tropical wave along the East Coast, dumping rain all day. Fun with Tech is here. Ryan mentions the remains of Franklin appearing on the west coast of Mexico. Development expected in the Pacific now. We have Eddie W. here. David Moore says, typical hot August day, 98 degrees there. North breeze brought the dew point down to the lower 60s. Burl H. joining us. Sarah Wood getting ready for the eclipse. And, of course, the Perseid meteor shower. The moon is going to be a problem for that. Carl Berghoff is here. Sarah Wood likes the intro. Excellent. David Moore sitting in his recliner, enjoying the webcast while drinking a F5. I think that says F5. That sounds pretty good there. Carl Berghoff likes the intro also. Ryan watching the other tropical wave out in the Atlantic, 500 miles out, not expected to have any development because of dry air aloft. Okay, yeah, that's definitely good to know there. Joshua Gilbert mentioning the meteor shower. I haven't kept track of this meteor shower stuff, so let me take a look. Perseids. I want to see if that's tonight. So we're looking at, I think this weekend here. Typical peak activity, August 11th. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a multi-day event. I remember the big meteor shower has always been the Leonids in November. And, of course, we had that amazing shower back in 2002, I think it was. That was just an incredible display. Okay, August 11th through 13th. So, yeah, that's going to be this weekend. And really about the only important thing we need to know is the radiant, where that's going to be coming from. And northeast part of the sky. Doesn't give any information about whether it's morning or evening. A lot of times these tend to be morning showers, but anyway, I'm pretty sure that's going to be coming from Perseus there, so I would probably get a good application on your phone for looking for the constellations, and that'll help tell you where to look. And they're going for, let's see, 100 meteors per hour, so that's going to be about one every 45 seconds or so. Okay, David Holcomb at Papa John's Making Pizzas saying hello there, so hi to David Holcomb. Michael Burrell saying hotel space very limited, even around Atlanta. Hello from Justin, and Carl Berghoff mentioning Justin is on the credits on the intro. Justin arrived late. He's going to watch it later. Asking about the boundary on the visible radar mid-morning today across north and central Texas. Well, unfortunately, I was asleep, so I didn't see the boundary, but it might have been a little bit of outflow from something last night. Okay, Justin missed the short-term forecast. Carl's asking, can we infer the PVA maximum without an actual vorticity product using the wind field and height? Yeah, you can do it. It's not really a good way to practice diagnosis because it's a diagnostic field that's very hard to determine using strictly a wind field. But essentially where you have very strong winds aloft, like what you see here in the Pacific Northwest, you're going to find positive vorticity just north of that and negative vorticity south of that. So that's going to be the shear term of the vorticity equation, and the other part of that is going to be the curvature, and that's a little bit harder to forecast, and you have to kind of merge the two, and it's best to leave those fields to computers to actually solve that. But yeah, you can pretty much infer that we'll have positive cyclonic vorticity right there, and out ahead of it, that's where you're going to have positive vorticity advection, and coincidentally, that is the left front quadrant of that jet. Okay, let's see. We'll just do a quick forecast here for the upper levels. We're looking for the stronger upper level pattern to kind of shift eastward over the weekend. A little bit of jet stream energy persisting in the northern plains there. Pretty good trough coming in from the west. That'll emerge onto the plains on Tuesday night and Wednesday. There it is right there. So that's going to affect the central plains. That'll lift northeast into the Great Lakes by Thursday, and then we have another trough coming through. And now the eclipse is starting to get within range. So GFS is going for that right there. This is the eclipse time, the eclipse coming through like that right there. So we're looking for a trough out in the Pacific Northwest. Typically when we have these back southwesterly winds aloft, this tends to be associated with cirrus and scattered to broken layers aloft, so I think there could be some visibility problems in this area here. Maybe some high cloud, especially around Idaho, Wyoming, if that pans out. Things do look a little bit better for the Great Plains, and we were talking yesterday about how the lower plains and Midwest were looking good, and I think that probably is still the case. We've got northwesterly flow in the Appalachians, so that's a good thing. A little bit of troughing right here, so that's the other problem. So you see that troughing there. That could be associated with maybe some clouds around the Appalachians, maybe a little bit of thunderstorm activity there, and maybe some breaks there in South Carolina. So I think there's going to be a lot of mesoscale influence by the time we get to that period, so we're not going to know here for several days exactly what's going on, but your best bets, I think, are going to be up in this area here. And as far as Oregon, that I'm not too sure about. Northerly flow, it can swing either way. But we have the cold core low right here. The air mass with these cold cores, they do tend to be kind of dry, so there might be some breaks in here, especially back in this region. But like I said, I think the main problems might be out just a little bit out ahead of that. So let's see how well the models are agreeing on the forecast. Going to look at the relative humidity here. Actually, what I want to do is go to the ensembles. This is a combination of the Canadian model and the GFS here. So we're going to look at 200 millibars, look at the heights, and the RMS error here. So there's the 500 millibar forecast for, this is actually the 500 millibar mean for all of the different models, and it is showing that troughing along the west coast. Looks like there's quite a bit of disagreement off the coast at this time. The models have been pretty consistent in forecasting ridging over the Great Plains, so we're going to kind of look for that right there, and that's supporting the idea of better cloudiness, better chance of clear skies in that area from the Dakotas down to Illinois. And let's see what other fields we have here. Precipitation, I've never looked at the precipitation field. They're putting one little precip area here in Illinois, so maybe, I don't know, it could be an old MCS there, but I think usually you're going to be able to find some clearing around MCSs like that, and those will be pretty easy to forecast as we get a little bit closer. And let's see if I can pull up all the different charts. I'm going to go to the 500 millibar chart and see if I can pull down all of the individual members. And this is showing all the different solutions. So for the Canadian global model, there's troughing. We've got another one here showing ridging. In Western Canada, another one has troughing. Yeah, the majority of these have troughing just off the coast, actually. And then just a very few going for ridging in the Rockies. So quite a bit of disagreement here. But it looks like the mean position of that trough is right off the coast, and a lot of them are going for ridging in the northern plains there. So once again, I think the best chance for seeing the eclipse is going to be in the northern plains. So we'll take a look at this again over the weekend and see how things are looking, but right now there's just too much difference between all of the different GFS and global model runs. Okay, then one last look at the forecast. Let's see here. Let's see what happens to the moisture. You can see the high pressure there on Saturday this weekend, pushing mild air southward, dry air southward, and the boundary is way down to the south in Texas and Mississippi, Louisiana. And then we see pretty strong upslope flow here in Oklahoma on Saturday. Looks like a good chance for storms there in the Texas Panhandle. Some pretty good troughing out in the Red River area by Sunday morning. But the overall synoptic scale flow is turning around from the south. So there it is. Just a little bit of a mesoscale disturbance there. A little bit of maybe outflow from overnight convection. But overall, the main flow is coming in from the south. So that should start lifting that boundary northward. And there it goes. And now we're back to pressure falls there in the high plains, southerly flow through Texas, so return to warm weather. And then for the rest of the week, it looks like we have another front coming south right there. This is a very weak one, but that might be enough to produce rain in Iowa and Minnesota as it moves eastward. By Friday, that'll be moving into the Midwest and into the Great Lakes. Then for Saturday and Sunday, things look kind of indeterminate. Looks like a lot of small boundaries through this area here. And then we get up to the eclipse time. This is what we have for the eclipse, and the GFS here has a very small frontal boundary through this area. Looks something like that right there. Now, fronts, that can change things a little bit because you will tend to develop low cloud fields along and just north of the boundary. But this is a very small scale feature, and I've got very little confidence that it's actually going to work out this way. So we're just going to have to wait a few days and see how things start to gel here. Warm air advection coming all the way up from Texas up to Illinois. This is kind of a broad scale pattern, so I do think overall, given this pattern, I think we are going to find some areas somewhere in here of good visibility. And then as we go out west, that's where we have the upper level trough. And that's definitely in question right there. And then for the rest of the week, going to the 24th, 25th, just a couple weak fronts coming south. We see northerly flow through Texas and Arkansas, so probably another boundary moving south and dying. So continued precipitation chances there for Texas later next week. And then we're going to be getting close to fall here, September coming up, and hurricane season also. Okay, so that's probably about all I got for tonight. Carl says give a like. Yeah, thank you very much. Sarah Wood says the best time to see the Perseids is early morning before sunrise. All right, and Justin says, honestly, feels not as hot as central North Texas, south of Houston. Okay, well, time for me to go shopping, so I'm going to let you go, and hopefully you'll have a good evening. Whoop, sorry about that. There you go. All right, take care, guys, and we'll see you tomorrow.